This is Molly Hemingway of The Federalist inviting you to join me for the 2026 Issues Etc. Making the Case Conference, Friday, June 12th and Saturday, June 13th at Concordia University, Chicago. I'll be speaking and signing copies of my new book, Alito, the Justice Who Reshaped the Supreme Court and Restored the U.S. Constitution. Learn more at issuesetc.org. issuesetc.org.
The emperor has no clothes on. He's buck naked. That child had to speak the truth no matter how it would make the king feel. And we have to do that today. We have to be very conscientious objectors to the madness that is gender ideology.
And most people default into this idea of feminism is this idea that men are contemptible, which is, of course, the idea behind smashing the patriarchy, and women need to be just like them and have the same equality.
The Crusades were a very belated response to many centuries of Muslim conquests, in which 2/3 of the old Christian world had already fallen to Muslim conquest.
And our faith is strong, not because of the fervor of its affection, but because of the object to which it clings, Christ. And there is no stronger faith than a really timid grasping to the suffering, death, and resurrection of Jesus.
Families sailing on their family vacation on lakes in Minnesota love Issues Etc.
We love Issues Etc. Woo!
There is a headline from the New York Times, a very interesting one indeed. U.S. schools face a crisis as the number of children drops. Now, there's no doubt about it. The number of children has dropped, and that is a contributing factor to public schools' declining enrollment. But are there other factors? Are parents, in fact, voting with their feet? Greetings and welcome to Issues Etc., coming to you live from the studios of Lutheran Public Radio in Collinsville, Illinois. I'm Todd Wilkin. Thanks for tuning us in. Tim Goeglein will join us to talk about declining enrollment in public schools. We'll conclude our four-part series on the 19th century Lutheran theologian and missionary Friedrich Winiken with Dr. Ken Scherb, and then we'll get an update on a lawsuit between Concordia University, Texas, and the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod with Tom Halverson. He's written a column titled LCMS Persists in Asserting Federal Jurisdiction of Concordia University, Texas Case. Tim Goeglein is Vice President of Government and External Relations at Focus on the Family in Washington, D.C., formerly served as Deputy Director of the White House Office of Public Liaison for President George W. Bush. He's author of several books, including his latest, What Really Matters, Restoring a Legacy of Faith, Freedom, and Family, and a recent column titled Why America's Public Schools Are Closing Their Doors. Tim, welcome back.
Todd, it's great to be with you.
What are the numbers being reported by the New York Times on declining enrollment in public schools?
Yeah, this is really sobering, Todd, because the New York Times recently reported on the state of the public school enrollment crisis, which is really gripping the New York greater area and many other major urban school systems. But New York is particularly interesting because the 5 boroughs of New York City are losing 22,000 students a year. I mean, that is really shocking. And in fact, I was reading more deeply into their numbers, and something like around 140,000 students have departed the New York City public school system just since the pandemic. So it's very, very big news in Gotham.
The New York Times attributes the declining enrollment to declining birth rates. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, I'm eager to respond because while the Times cites declining birth rates resulting in fewer children attempting public schools, and that is a factor, I think, I believe, Todd, there are other issues at play as well. And in my new book, What Really Matters, I write at length about how our failed public school systems are really not equipping our children with the necessary education and the other tools they need to flourish and thrive. But it also, unfortunately, keeps them woefully ignorant of our American history and our system of government. And when you add it all together, you can see that it's really a categorical undermining of both their civil engagement through their ignorance of the most basic concepts of how to be an informed citizen. So I think these things go far beyond declining birth rates.
Talk more about how the public schools are failing to just basically educate students.
You know, that is the most important question. And you have to look not at somebody's opinions, but at the data itself. And the most recent National Assessment of Educational Progress report, otherwise known as NAEP, which is a very excellent measurement. It was released very recently, and it found that the state of American education, and this includes, by the way, Todd, civic education, was really sobering. The report found that the average U.S. history score at 8th grade levels in America decreased by 5 points compared to 2018. And are you ready for this? By 9 points compared just to 2014. So 40% of students in America were below the most basic level in U.S. history knowledge. In fact, this to me is the most sobering number. Only 13% of American 8th graders are deemed proficient in American history, and only 22% in basic civics and government. So the schools are very clearly and overwhelmingly not doing their most basic job.
If not educating students, what are public schools apparently doing?
You know, I would love to be able to be in a debate with the leaders of the National Education Association and the others, because I think we can clearly say that without an informed citizenry in the rising generation, we all suffer as a result. I mean, at home, in the workplace, and in the public square. My friend George Will has written about the result of this civic ignorance. And I think he beautifully summed it up. He said, time was when the school year ended, parents worried about summer learning loss. He said, nowadays, there is less learning to worry about losing. And I think that's so well said. I think he's right. Thankfully, American parents are finally beginning to have a choice when it comes where their children go to school. And they are very clearly voting with their feet for other options, Todd, and other options that provide better quality education. And I think subsequently greater future opportunities for their children.
How much of this decline in our public schools is due to the political agenda of powerful teachers' unions like the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers?
A lot. And I would say it's overwhelming now. And the current public school establishment, like other failing businesses often do, they do not like it when the public sees and is engaged in trying to combat this. But the numbers are unmissable. And I think that what we are seeing now on the part of these behemoth organizations is really a desperate attempt and tactics to limit those options and to force families to come back, frankly, against their will. So despite this very sobering news, I think there's actually a lot of hopeful news when you look individually, state by state, and county by county.
Tell us about how some states are trying to help parents use alternatives to public school.
Yeah, well, let me use one, I think, really great example, and that's Arizona. Because Arizona has implemented a thriving empowerment scholarship account program, which enables parents to take the money that would pay for that student's education in a neighborhood school and have it follow to whichever school the parents choose for their child, including, by the way, homeschool, which I think is just great. Of course, parents are happy with the results, but naturally, the public school establishment is working overtime to undermine the program through ballot initiatives that essentially limit them to take advantage of the program for their own children. So it's a never-ending battle.
Is there anything that can be done to reform public schools or provide alternatives to public schools in blue states?
You know, I believe that there are, and I think that one of the really bright lights is the increasing number of charter schools. It's remarkable, even here in Washington, D.C., where I live, to internalize the reality that more than 40% of all Washington, D.C. students now have the option of charter schools, and their parents are using them. Of course, we want more school choice. We want better private alternatives. But I think the combination of school choice, charter schools, homeschooling, which continues to increase, of course, our parochial and private schools, I think this combination is really the way forward. And increasingly, Americans overwhelmingly realize that government and so-called public schools are mostly not working, and that the K through 12 timeline, I think, deserves to be rethought, and rethought in a way that is better for 21st century young students, who I think that there are increasing numbers of American homes and their children who are looking for much better options, and I think they're going to take them.
Some, in particular parochial schools, have concerns about school voucher programs because they think it will come with government strings attached as to what they can say and not say in the classroom. What are your thoughts there?
My larger thoughts is that it's good to be prudent, it's good to be cautious, but we actually now have a lot of firm examples. And I think that the examples that we have so far are allowing parents a wide latitude without government interference. And I want to be careful in this regard, because a lot of people who are listening to us live in rural and exurban areas where voucher programs tend to allow a lot more latitude. And we have a lot of people listening to us in blue, suburban and more urban areas where often that's not the case. But I have made a real study of the direct impact of voucher programs, not only on student attainment, but also parental freedom. And I find overwhelmingly that vouchers are a safe bet for parents and a good way to move forward.
Are American public schools themselves beyond the point of no return?
I think not. I remain an inveterate optimist, but not because of confetti to the wind optimism. I remain an optimist, Todd, because what is actually going on in the counties, in the regions, and in more than half of our states. I think competition eventually leads to a much firmer and better education for our children. And I think we've only begun to see how this is working. Yes, I think birth rates are going to continue falling, at least in the short term, but I think it's true at the same time that parents are tired of seeing academic standards continue to fall as well. And so I think this combination of a moment allows parents to reassess and to make better choices. So all of the spin about why public and government schools are closing their doors rooted in birth rates is not exclusively true. I think the bigger reason is the quality of education, and we now have lots of better alternatives.
Tim Goeglein is Vice President of Government and External Relations for Focus on the Family in Washington, D.C. He formerly served as Deputy Director of White House Office of Public Liaison for President George W. Bush. He's author of several books, including his latest, What Really Matters, Restoring a Legacy of Faith, Freedom, and Family, and a recent column titled Why America's Public Schools Are Closing Their Doors. You'll find a link to this column and to What Really Matters on the Talk On Demand archives page at issuesetc.org. Tim, thanks.
Todd, thanks so much.
Folks, if you're looking for school options for the 2026-27 school year, find a Lutheran school near you at lcms.org/schools. Lutheran Church Missouri Synod congregations operate more than 1,600 early childhood centers and preschools and more than 800 elementary schools. lcms.org/schools. Ken Sherb joins us for the conclusion of our series on 19th century Lutheran theologian Friedrich Wyneken.
Social conservatives also think that none of us can flourish simply with freedom. So one of the ways in which a social conservative will differ from a libertarian, even though both are frequently classified as being on the right or housed on the right, is the idea that none of us is born ready for the responsibilities of liberty.
Ryan Anderson of the Ethics and Public Policy Center talking about his presentation at the 2026 Issues Etc. Making the Case Conference.
So we need families, we need communities, we need churches and synagogues, we need schools and universities to form us. We also need law to form us. Law and culture, they both shape us, they shape our beliefs, they shape our actions. And so if we want to defend freedom, we also need to defend formation. And that means the ability to draw a distinction between liberty and license.
You can hear Ryan Anderson making the case for social conservatism at the Making the Case Conference, June 12th and 13th at Concordia University, Chicago. Register online at issuesetc.org.
Your lifeline to the Lutheran worldview. You're listening to Issues Etc.
This is Pastor Matthew Harrison, President of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The LCMS operates the second largest parochial school system in the United States. What can you expect from a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod school? There's one race, the human race. And Jesus died for the sins of every man, woman, and child from every land and every nation. Life begins at conception. All life is precious from womb to tomb. And every student, parent, and teacher is created in the very image of God. There's right and wrong, and we know which is which from the Ten Commandments. There are only two sexes, male and female. He created them. Marriage is the lifelong union of one man and one woman. There's such a thing as objective, absolute truth, and it's found in the person and work of Jesus Christ and His Word. To find a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod school near you, visit lcms.org/schools.